Well, would you look at that? This is the Nightcap with yours truly, and most importantly, your buddy, Jared Yamamoto. This is my new talk show, typically heard every Saturday night from 11 to midnight, right here on 95.5 WSB. And I have to say, friends, tonight is a pure example of American progress. Me hanging out behind this microphone, hanging out with all of you beautiful people out there. You might be scratching your head thinking, what in the hell is Jared opening up his show with? Because I guarantee you forgot about this today. But your old buddy Jared Yamamoto, hint, hint, did not forget about this moment here at all. I know I was out having a great time, hanging out, watching all the conference championship games, going from bar to bar, making sure that I prepped. And, believe me, we have the news of the night in front of me. I have a ton of Atlanta stories. I'm concerned about the local restaurant atmosphere. I won't dwell too much into that later on, but I promise you there's a lot of news that we're going to get to. But I guarantee you forgot about this on this December 7th of all days, because today is National Pearl Harbor Remembrance Day. 83 years ago, the Empire of Japan attacked Pearl Harbor, launching the United States into World War II. Obviously, it was a horrific event, but it turned the tide of the war, and the United States thankfully ended up taking care of business. And I am as American as they come. In fact, I challenge your patriotism to my patriotism. So don't come at me and be like, oh, I guarantee you he's a Yamamoto. He probably still has allegiance to Japan. I have no allegiance to Japan. I do have some family over there. So I would say in the country spectrum, obviously America would obviously be on the top. I'm American through and through. I've got a lot of hillbilly in me, a lot of Georgian, a lot of North Carolinian that ends up canceling out a lot of the Asian roots. And I even have some Bolivian roots in me as well, too. If anything, me being behind this microphone, hanging out with y'all, is a sign of American progress, because after 83 years, who would have thought after that moment that you would ever hear a Yamamoto broadcasting on Atlanta airwaves in the Deep South? Nobody would have ever thought that would have happened. So it just shows that we've come a long way, and I'm glad that the good guys ended up taking care of business. And I've told my immigration story before. It's a beautiful thing. I think that what my great-grandfather ended up doing, defecting Japan while the empire was growing, he ended up believing that he was going to Chile to go work in some of like the mines and stuff there to go get minerals, and ended up in Bolivia, where he met my great-grandmother. They had my grandfather. My grandfather ended up going to college in the United States at both Georgia Tech and graduated at NC State. Met my hillbilly grandmother, and they had my dad, and then my dad met my mom, and here I am now. So that's kind of just the lineage of events right there. A true legal immigration story that shows that great people can be born all over the world, and they're just seeking opportunity. And I can assure you, all of my family love this country tremendously, and it is a sign of true American progress that a Yamamoto is hanging out with you 83 years later after the events on Pearl Harbor. I see it as progress there, but we have a lot to talk about. The news of the night never stops, as you know, and I want to talk about a couple stories that I'm a little concerned with, because I know last week I spent a lot of time talking about the authentic side of Atlanta and how we're losing that. As somebody that frequents restaurants and likes to go out, likes to jump from bar to bar, likes to try new restaurants, it's just what my wife and I like to do. That's part of our hobbies. I'm sure once children come, a lot of that will change, and people give me a hard time about that all the time. They're like, I can't believe that you have all this time to be able to do that. I'm like, well, when you're dual income, no kids, dinks, it's actually quite easy to do. And for us, that's something we enjoy, and we love being in Atlanta and love exploring like that. But a couple of notable locations ended up closing their doors this week. Earlier this week, we heard about the Ivy closing its doors after 14 years, which that's a bar right by Johnny's Hideaway over in Buckhead. And they announced that their last day is going to be New Year's Eve. They're going to be at least reinventing the concept there. But immediately, once the news came down, I was texting with some friends, and I said, well, what are people going to do when the Johnny's line is too long? Because we all know that for anybody that's been to Johnny's Hideaway, the line can be so long sometimes that you look over there and then you look at the Waffle House and you're like, can I go to the Waffle House? Can I go to Landmark Diner? the Ivy always ends up being a clutch option to go to. So hopefully it's something that is still easy to get into and they're able to turn a profit. And I will say this, I went into the Ivy a couple of months ago for a bar crawl, and it was the first time that I've ever felt significantly older than everybody else there. And I've gone to Athens, Tuscaloosa, Knoxville, Carrollton, all these college towns where I'm obviously one of the older people there because you're surrounded by college kids. But when I went to the Ivy a couple months ago, I was surprised. I looked around and I'm like, wow, me and my friends are significantly older than the people there. Didn't stop us from having a good time, but that's one of the first moments where I was hyper aware about it, but definitely concerned. I really hope for that area that they find something that ends up being a nice alternative when the Johnny's Hideaway line is too long, because it really can get congested over there. And you could sit in that line, especially when it's cold like this. Like, I'm not built for this cold. I can tolerate about 20 minutes in the cold. I have friends that are like, I love it. I'll sit in the cold all day. I've got my liquor jacket on because they've been drinking all day. I'm like, no. Immediately, this is the biggest buzzkill for your host. I'm not going to hang out in this line all day waiting for somebody to potentially jump the line and grease the bouncer, or you sometimes have to wait an hour just to only hang out in there an hour. So the Ivy was always a nice alternative there. But then yesterday, the big news came out that West Egg is shutting their doors too after 20 years in West Midtown. Now, different kind of flavor than the Ivy, actually a very different flavor, being a brunch spot in West Midtown. But this is a sign that the economy is not as good as people are letting on, and there is a lot to fix. And in Georgia especially, we have one of the healthier economies. But when you see institutions like the Ivy and West Egg closing, I think the Ivy had been open for 14 years and West Egg was 20 years. When you see institutions closing, it's one thing if it's something that's been open for 3 years, 4 years, or it's a club. You know, they often have a quick turnaround with clubs, but institutions that have been around for, let's say, over 8 years, that's kind of my threshold. If you've been around for over 8 years, then you're, at this point, you know how to run your business and you know what works and what doesn't work, in my humble opinion. I've never run a small business or never run a bar or anything, but I know people that run restaurants and bars, and that's kind of the threshold that I know that they look at. And to see some of these businesses like West Egg, Ivy, I mentioned Steady Hand last week, closing their doors. Now the brewery industry is getting impacted by a lot of other outliers too, but this is an overall sign that the economy is not as healthy as people believe, and it's because we've dealt with high inflation for going on 3-4 years now. And the funny thing is, like, when everybody tells you that, oh, inflation's coming down, even though the percentage is going down, the prices of goods are still going up. So what ends up happening? People don't have the dispensable income to go to a brunch, to go to a nice dinner, to go to a bar. I know, again, I'll go back to where I started with Tina. My wife and I love to go to restaurants and we love to go to bars. But when inflation especially was really bad, we made it a point to cut back on a lot of these places. We used to go out a lot, but now we're only going out a couple times out of the week. And I don't want to seem like a brat by saying that, but I want everybody to have the extra dispensable income so they can go out and spend the money how they choose to do, doing the hobbies they choose to do, because otherwise then we're just going to have a very kind of bland, unauthentic city where it's just going to be the grocery store and the things that you need, and people are just going to end up hanging out their houses all the time. And that's not necessarily that's a bad thing. If that's what you like to do, that's fine. But I'm just here to promote options. And the idea of having more Atlantans with money in their pocket is a healthy Atlanta, in my opinion, compared to people having to squeeze their pennies and, decide, well, I can't go to the Ivy anymore, or I can't go to brunch at West Egg anymore, or I can't go support my local coffee shop. You get my gist. I worry about our city, and if you're listening from another city, this is going to impact you as well, too. And a lot of this comes from the top, and I do think if there is one good thing about the regime change is that a lot of the policies of the Trump administration will loosen things up. Now, one of the things that was a drawback about his administration was by moving the interest rates to basically zero. I think they were zero for a little while. the housing market, just all the house prices went up, up, up. But it also proved that you can't just pump money and give it to every single person. Like so many of these very bad economists come up with this idea. Like if everybody just had more money, then we'd all be able to afford everything. It was the direct relationship of us getting a ton of money through COVID and jacking the prices up, 0% interest rate. Of course, companies are going to see an opportunity to raise their prices, but if everybody's got more money in their pocket, then the value of things ends up decreasing. If there's more dollars in circulation, then the value of the dollars that you have become less. So it's just funny to me how people are like, well, if everybody just has more dollars, they're going to do better. And it was a perfect example watching what happened with home costs over the past couple of years. I know that they've gone kind of down a little bit as the interest rates went up, but when they were basically zero, that was one of the direct causes of it. And you can come challenge me any way that you want about it. People are going to be like, no, you're not, Jared. That's not what happened. There's other factors. I'm like, no. This is the economic perspective where people are like, well, if everybody just has more money, they'll do better. No, this was a direct example of what happens when people that don't typically have the incomes they were receiving through COVID and through all the different government subsidies during those times, that if you have too much money in the system, then the cost of everything goes up. And we're still kind of pulling ourselves out of that. And when you say that inflation's at 2%, remember, it is still going up by 2%. So all I'm asking for at the end of the day, watching all of these businesses, all of these breweries, all these nightclubs, Bar Diver ended up closing. I don't know if I mentioned that last week or not too, but Bar Diver ended up closing as well too. All of these prominent businesses closing, is I'm saying I would much rather have less government intervention and more money in our pocket, so that way we can have the choice to support local businesses that make Atlanta what Atlanta is today, and hopefully continue the Atlanta feel into the future. But you hear the stories about these places closing. I just worry about the future of the city of Atlanta. When we come back, I promise I'll talk about some happier things. I saw that Atlanta finally got its first access to the Chattahoochee River, which when I read this story by Urbanize Atlanta, I was like, are you kidding me? How in the world did Atlanta not think, wow, Chicago's got a beautiful river. We could build things around our river like Chicago did. Or Cincinnati, they have the Ohio River that runs through it. Or hell, Chattanooga's got the Tennessee River that runs through it. So at the end of the day, I'm happy that we finally have access to the Chattahoochee River. And I'll tell you more of the details when we come back. But kind of a head scratcher that it took us this long to finally get the city of Atlanta its own access to this river. We'll talk about that. And I got a bunch of other stories. The news of the night never stops here on the Nightcap with Jared Yamamoto. And we are brought to you by Guardian Home Experts, Heating, Air, and Plumbing. We'll be right back. So let's go over. Rob, are you trying to throw me off by playing Creed here? I know what you're doing. I told you off air in secrecy about this, but I guess I did bring up on the Von Hessler Doctrine that yes, your beloved host did see Creed and Three Doors Down at State Farm Arena, and I have a confession to make. It wasn't that bad. I'll be honest with you. I actually had a pretty good time, because when you think back about the catalog of music, which, by the way, this is the Nightcap with yours truly, Jared Yamamoto. Rob is flying the big WSB ship, making sure that all of our voices get to each and every one of you fine people out there. And what was really interesting about the show was there was a mixture of die-hard Creed fans that you could tell they bought every album along the way. They probably went to every tour. I saw a lot of very old Creed t-shirts in the crowd, and I loved it. I'm like, you know what? I love seeing fans that are that passionate about an artist. Now, I'm not that kind of guy. I knew the radio hits, 6 Feet Under and Hi, Can You Take Me High? I knew all the main songs, and for like Three Doors Down, I knew Kryptonite and all that stuff. I knew the main songs there. But for my buddy and I that went to the show, for our middle school and high school years, I mean, those were significant radio hits during our times. Now, it doesn't mean that we're diehard fans or that it was the best rock show that I've ever seen. It was not even close to the best rock shows I've ever seen. But it wasn't a bad show. And I would say the only coaching I would offer, and probably people love this, was at some points during the show, actually between every song, Scott Stabb made it a point to get very lectury during the show, and it was all uplifting messaging. I'm not saying it was bad messaging, but at some point, okay, dude, like we came here to listen to you play your music, not for you to provide a sermon to us. And I know some people probably loved that, but he could have made a lot more time for his music. I did love this. I did love that they went past time, which so many of these artists are afraid to go past time in indoor venues, especially in the Atlanta area. My thinking is there's no way that if you go till 11:05 or 11:03 that people are going to be hurt in the neighborhood around State Farm Arena. There's no way. Now, I completely understand with like a Truist Park, a Chastain, Lakewood, or Ameris Bank. I get it. It's an outdoor venue. You have to abide by the rules of the neighborhood, and you don't want to become a nuisance. I totally get it. But for an indoor venue, when they say it's a hard cutoff at 11, I'm just like, what? And even during the weeknights, for some people, I mean, this is their Super Bowl. They probably have waited all year to come see Three Doors Down and Creed and give them a show. It ends up only being 2.5 hours of the headliner. And for me, as a huge music lover, that doesn't seem like enough time. I get frustrated with festivals when they only give the headliner an hour and a half. I get very frustrated with that. So my thinking is let people go a little bit longer, especially in the indoor venues. I understand for the outdoor venues, but for those indoor venues, be lenient. Let people have fun. Let them have a good time. And there was a lot of people there, so I'm glad to see Creed and Three Doors Down getting their money, seeing the people out, having fun. That's what it's all about. People having a good time and having fun. When we come back, I totally teased in the last segment that I was going to get back to this Chattahoochee water access, Atlanta's first river public access. And I'm like, I just scratched my head. I'm like, how did it take us this long to establish this public access here? We should have done this years ago, looking at all the major cities out there. I also definitely want to talk about my Spotify Wrapped. A lot of people are upset with theirs. Mine is 100% accurate. And Bill Belichick interviewing for the UNC head coaching job. I have my theory as to why he's doing it. It's because that young girlfriend of his, but I'll get into more detail when we come back after news, weather, and traffic here on the Nightcap with Jared Yamamoto. Just as I promised, you got your news, you got your weather, you got your traffic, and now you got me. This is the Nightcap with yours truly, Jared Yamamoto. And if you've liked what you've heard so far tonight, be sure to give me a follow on all my different socials. I'm on YouTube, X, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. Just look for Jared Yamamoto. I promise you I'm easy to find, especially on this Pearl Harbor Remembrance Day. Yamamoto will pop right up on all the search engines out there. Couple open mics. I appreciate you guys leaving these open mics on the WSB radio app. You get 30 seconds over there. And, of course, we have to get the Creed haters out there. Listen to this one.
Tyler, North Carolina. Jared, I'm sure you had a great time at that Creed concert. However, am proud to say that I have not seen Creed play live, and I was at a concert where they were the headliner, which is to say that I went for the band that I wanted to see and then promptly left as soon as they took the stage because Creed is terrible.
Okay, so Tyler, I appreciate the open mic, number one, but number two, you just have to remember there was a lot of artificial hate for those bands for a while. Like, in my opinion, they got a little too hyped. It was the Nickelback, the Creed, Three Doors Down, the butt rock era is what they called it, B-U-T-T. They called it butt rock for a while. And it got super big, all over radio in the, I guess, the late night, maybe it was the early 2000s. It was my middle of school, high school. So it would have been the early 2000s. It got huge. Then it became so lame to be able to listen to it, when in reality, all of us listened to it still, and we didn't hate it. So now it's kind of had an artificial comeback where even the Gen Zers are kind of ironically listening to it, which for me, that kind of stinks. But if you're the band and you're making money, by all means, go out there, spend the money on the tickets, and make it whatever experience possible. As long as you're providing money to the band, then I guess at the end of the day, everybody ends up being happy about that. But it's not cool to hate Creed anymore, Tyler. That's what I'm here to tell you. It's okay to say that you liked them. And for me, I did. I liked the radio hits of Creed, and I liked the radio hits of Three Doors Down, and I liked the radio hits of Nickelback. In fact, I was looking at a show, I think it's in Anderson, South Carolina this summer, where Kid Rock and Nickelback are going to be doing a show, again, 2 hours away from Atlanta. I'm texting my buddies. I'm like, let's go. Let's figure out what we missed out on, because I know that there was when I finally got into the concert viewing age where you were able to go by yourself. I think some people, some parents allow their kids to go to concerts at 15, 16. I wasn't allowed to go until I was 17. And then once I started going to concerts around 17, 18, I just loved it. And as you know, I go to so many of them now. And I wish that I had a chance to experience like a Scott Stapp when he was younger and stuff. But hey, the good thing is that they're touring, they come back, and give a second chance. You might actually find that you like these artists more than how you were told to hate them back in the day. Another open mic from the WSB radio app.
Good grief, Jared. Would you please stop being so happy? Be a negative person like myself. Thank you.
That's right. I know. I tend to find the good in people, but in reality, I realize there's a lot of crappy people out there. And if you just go in there with a good mentality or try to find a good mentality, then oftentimes the good goes around. You should try to be nice to people. There are going to be people that annoy you in life. There are going to be events that annoy you, and you can choose to be a grump and not enjoy things, or you can try to make the most out of the situation and end up accepting. There's a lot of things, even within my family and with my friend groups, where I'm just like, I hate that this is going on, but I just lead them like, hey, you know what? It's their life, and they're in control of it. And for me, I'm like, I can control what I like to do and what makes me happy. So I think that positivity goes around. So for people that like to live the constant grumpy life, I don't know how you feel. Maybe I'll change over the years, but it doesn't mean that I'm not honest with people. Hell, during the presidential election, I was getting borderline death threats because I voted Libertarian instead of what everybody else voted for, a Democrat or a Republican. And I gave my logical reasoning as to why I voted Libertarian instead of for the Democrat or the Republican, like everybody else told me I had to do because it was the most important election of our lifetime. And what did I tell you going into all this stuff? I said, it's not the most important election of our lifetime. In fact, there will be way more important elections with way more consequences than the last one. But people forget that. You know what? I'm not keeping score over here. Just Rob is. Rob's over there. He's remembering what I say over there. He's making sure that I stay in line, and I appreciate that, Rob. All right, I'll go on and get to this Atlanta first Chattahoochee River public access point opening, because this is over in West Midtown, kind of near where I live. I guess they're calling it the Upper West Side. And the fact that Atlanta waited this long to create its own public access to the Chattahoochee is just beyond me. I mean, for years, did we just think that we could pollute these waterways? Because I know, even looking at the creek near where I live, Proctor Creek, I know many people walk the trail over there that's kind of connected with the Beltline. I think it's a path project, but it's connected with the Beltline. And I see trash all the time in that river. And even living over by Piedmont Park and some of the creeks and stuff, there's trash all over the place. So I just wonder if people thought for years, well, we'll just use Georgia's waterways as our trash bin. We'll throw things out in the river, and it'll flow down into Florida, and it'll become their problem. Because, in my opinion, if they had built things closer to the Chattahoochee, it could have been a beautiful waterfront. Now, it's not as wide as the Ohio River, not as wide as the Tennessee River or anything, but you could certainly make something pretty out of it. And for anybody that's new to Atlanta, I love tubing on the Chattahoochee River. I've taken a kayak out there before. It's actually quite enjoyable. Now, I've had to go up to like the Roswell area and kind of put in down there, and we end up positioning two cars down the river. And there are services that actually provide the tubes for you further up north, and even going up into Helen too, where it's just shooting the hooch up there is a lot of fun. So I'm just surprised that Atlanta didn't see more opportunity in this in years prior. I'm glad that we're making something of this now, but previous generations really missed out on a cool opportunity to make a riverfront in the Atlanta area. Now, this is something that's been bothering me because my lovely wife, I love her dearly, but every day I come home, and I realize this is the case for a lot of Atlanta households, but every day that I come home, I feel like there's a package outside. I have made a pact with my wife. She handles all of the Christmas shopping, and she does a damn good job of it. She puts a lot of thought into it. I handle like just the core family gifts and her gift, and then core friends, and then she handles like all of the other gifts out there. But this has been happening with too much regularity in my neighborhood, where I see people leave packages outside for days and days and days. And I want to tell people, stop leaving the packages outside. Bring them inside. You are making our neighborhood a target. Don't do that. And sure enough, I saw this study that said that Atlanta ranks 6th for porch piracy in the country. This is from the home security company Safewise, and we are 6th worst, meaning there's a lot of people that end up taking your stuff from outside. So if you see stuff outside or you see your neighbor's stuff outside, tell them, let's not make our neighborhood a target. Bring those gifts inside. I know that Amazon makes things a hell of a lot easier than it used to be by ordering everything, especially with the same day or next day delivery. But most importantly, you have to protect yourself and your neighbors around you. It's an estimated 1.1 million packages have been stolen in the Atlanta area alone, with a value of over $154 million in stolen goods. You don't want to be part of those people that end up getting their stuff taken, especially if it's from an irresponsible neighbor that has left their stuff out for 3-4 days. And now the bad porch pirates are like, well, we're going to go to that neighborhood and we're going to take from them. No, don't allow yourself to be that. And call people out. If you have an HOA, tell people in your HOA, you are the narc in the HOA. Let people know, hey, the Andersons, they're leaving stuff out. The Johnsons, they're leaving stuff out. The Gallaghers, they're leaving stuff out. Make sure that you call people out for leaving gifts out, because you do not want your neighborhood to be a target of these porch pirates, because they will come back and target your neighborhood. You do not want that. All right, moving on. I wanted to talk about this from crypto news here, because remember the Hawk Tuah girl, the girl that people keep forgetting, Haley Welch. She had her huge moment at the beginning of the year, became one of the most viral sensations, if not the most viral sensation of 2024, for saying this.
What's one move in bed that makes a man go crazy every time?
You gotta give him that Hawk Tuah and spit on that thing.
Oh, that's right. And she has gone to huge fame, started up her own podcast called the Talk Tuah Podcast, and then created her own meme coin, which started at $500 million and crashed to $60 million. And people are not happy with her, saying that it was basically an inside job. Now, CoffeeZilla, I'm not sure if you're familiar with CoffeeZilla, but CoffeeZilla likes to hold people accountable with his account, and he confronted Haley Welch about this meme coin and the crash that happened, suggesting that there was some insider trading. But listen to the audio here.
This is one of the most miserable, horrible launches I've ever seen in my life.
Okay, then why the are you on?
I've been tracing it on chain for a while. You guys generated over $1 million in fees while y'all's fans got rug pulled. There was snipers, but there was also insider trading directly linked to y'all's creator account. What are you guys doing?
No. That's not true.
That is true. That's a fact.
No, it's not.
Well, it's a fact, and you can see it on chain. So
yeah, we know. We trust me. We were there.
Well, I appreciate CoffeeZilla for being the whistleblower in this case, but I'm sorry, if you're dumb enough to buy a meme coin from the Hawk Tuah girl, Haley Welch, then I think you do have to look yourself in the mirror and say, hey, maybe I should have gone with, I don't know, someone a little bit more reputable, like an Elon Musk or somebody that works in the financial field. Even I'd go with a Mark Cuban or something like that. I know that I don't agree with him politically on a lot, but I would trust a Mark Cuban meme coin a lot more than a Hawk Tuah meme coin. So people, don't put yourself in these positions where you can be financially harmed by influencers that get famous for saying things like,
what's one move in bed that makes a man go crazy every time?
You gotta give him that Hawk Tuah and spit on that thing.
I am not investing money for somebody that made a comment like that. When we come back, I want to talk about my Spotify Wrapped. I'm very happy about it. People are not happy. I don't understand it's a reflection of you. We'll talk about that. Bill Belichick interviewed for the UNC head coaching football job. I have my theory as to why he's doing that. I also watched the Lindsay Lohan movie, Our Little Secret, on Netflix, and I'll give my official review with a little What's Jared Watching. All that. You don't want to go anywhere when the Nightcap with Jared Yamamoto returns, and we are proudly brought to you by Guardian Home Experts, Heating, Air, and Plumbing. More of the Nightcap after this.
1148 in the Cool Ray Carrier 24-hour traffic center. Heads up in Union City. You got construction I-85 southbound at Flat Shoals Road.
This always happens to me. I get to the end of the show, and I look over, and I'm like, I didn't get to this news, or I didn't play this audio, or I didn't get to this story, and I'm just like, I How am I going to be able to get to all this stuff? Regardless, if you have any questions about anything that I've brought up here on the Nightcap with Jared Yamamoto, be sure to give me a follow on all my socials. I'm on YouTube, X, TikTok, Facebook, you name it. All the socials, just look for Jared Yamamoto. And of course, I'm on the Von Hessler Doctrine daily from 3 to 7 right here on 95.5 WSB. A couple things that I didn't get a chance to get to in my notes here. I love my hairstylist. She's great, but the company that she works for, and they will remain nameless, I'm sure that you probably had to deal with this, has been really pushing a subscription service for haircuts. And I keep telling them, I'm like, I don't know. I might grow my hair out this winter. I don't know if I want a 6-week subscription for my haircut, or a 1-year subscription for my haircut, and you just pay everything up front. I get that these companies are desperate. I mentioned at the top of the show, talking about the Ivy closing, West Egg, all the breweries closing, and people are trying to find new and creative ways to make money. But when you keep pushing a subscription service, especially for haircuts, I just scratch my head. I'm like, I don't think I could rationalize paying for a subscription service for something like that. It's not like I'm paying for Netflix. I'm paying for a haircut. So maybe people would think differently, but for people that pay for that, I just don't understand why these companies are pushing these kind of services where it's like, oh yeah, if you just pay for a year at $1,000, you get all these haircuts. And I'm like, I don't know how many haircuts I'm going to be getting in 2025. So stop pushing and allow me to make the decision as the customer myself, instead of every time, oh, did you look at that yearly subscription service? And I'm like, no, I didn't look at it because I don't know when my next haircut's going to be. People need to be able to breathe about this stuff. Now, going into the music world, I realize I will not be able to get to all of my Spotify Wrapped, but overall, though, I think I did pretty well. Another was my top artist, and if you don't know who Another is, you need to check out this artist. They are from Amsterdam. They are incredibly impressive, and they kind of cross over into the funk and EDM scene, followed by Daily Bread. I had Daily Bread on the Nightcap. He's an Atlanta guy. He's really started from the bottom and worked his way up and has just blown up this past year. And he was a great interview. Rhett Watley, super nice guy, followed by Disco Lines, which that's absolutely accurate with how my listening tendencies were. Now, you can go even deeper into it and see more of the trends per month on your Spotify Wrapped. And people were getting upset about it. Like, I can't believe it, or I didn't listen to that. This is all algorithmic based. And I'm like, no, it is a mirror of you. It is a mirror of your listenership. Your tastes may have changed, or like I looked back at April last year. For some reason, in April, I liked Big Gigantic more than anybody else. So I think it's just funny how people were complaining, saying that it wasn't very good and that it wasn't a reflection of them. I'm like, no, it's literally a mirror of you. They're collecting the data on you, and even though it seems like they're presenting it in a cute and fun way, they're giving this back to the artist so that way they can show them, hey, look how many people are listening to you through my platform. That's what they're using it for. They're collecting your data and using it that way, which seems maniacal, but at the same time, though, it's good for the artist because the artist then knows how to provide for the people that are listening. And through the similarities, you may end up finding an artist that sounds something like what you were listening to before, and you may end up liking them better. Now, I did not find Another that way. I found Another by reading an article about them saying that they should be on more festival lineups, and just absolutely loved them. So if you're an electronic or funk kind of fan, you're going to love Another, and that's why they ended up taking the top spot for me. I saw that AC/DC announced that they are going on tour next year. I've never seen them before. I would love to get the chance to see them, but Atlanta was not on the lineup. So here is your official prediction on this Pearl Harbor Remembrance Day, December 7th, 2024. AC/DC is going to headline Shaky Knees. That is my prediction. I'm calling it now. The fact they didn't pick an Atlanta date and they only go until the end of the spring. I have a feeling they'll come back and they will be one of the headliners in September for the new Shaky Knees Day. That's my prediction. Hold me to it and see if I'm correct about that. Also, before we go here, this is an amazing cause. Clark's Christmas Kids. Go to clarkschristmaskids.com. There are foster kids all across the state of Georgia that need your help. If you go to clarkschristmaskids.com, you have the choice to make sure that every foster kid in the state of Georgia gets presents under the tree, and you have a list of kids that you can pick from on the website. I know that my wife and I picked a Muriel from Fulton County. She's 8 years old, and we bought a couple of her gifts on there. The prices are very reasonable. There's a first tier, a second tier, and a third tier. Please give what you can. Donate there, or go and see Clark Howard and Eric Von Hessler tomorrow from 1 to 3 at the Walmart in Roswell off Mansell Road. They'll be out there. You can buy gifts for the kids right there in front of you. It's an amazing cause. I do it every year, and I highly recommend it for anybody that wants to make sure that you help foster kids here in the state of Georgia. That's our time for tonight. Thanks so much for hanging out with me. Please be safe out there, and we'll see you next time.